Hi, I'm Mikaela, and this is Love Mikaela, a podcast where I talk about literally anything and everything I want to. I'm gonna try not to move too much because my jacket is kind of loud today, but I wanted to slide this episode in as soon as I could, so this is as soon as I can get it in because it is kind of Valentine's themed, if you can tell from the title. This K drama is called My Man is Cupid, and I picked it because one, I like K dramas. Two, I like rom com K dramas. And three, it was like Valentine's ish themed because Cupid's in it. So I was like, oh, that'll be a good one to watch and like maybe talk about and my thoughts on it. It was on Amazon Prime. At least that's where I watched it. You could probably watch it. You could probably find it other places. But yeah, I'll go ahead and start with the synopsis. Chun Sang-hyuk is a charismatic fairy who easily makes women fall in love with him. 500 years ago, his wings were burned. To restore his wings, he went through 27 metamorphoses. I think that's how you say it. On his 28th time, which I think is the last time they go through metamorphosis, but it doesn't say it in here, but like in context of the show, that's what it seems like. He gets involved with Oh Baek-yeon. Oh Baek-yeon is a veterinarian and she works at an animal clinic. She is a pretty woman. Like, she's really, really gorgeous. They call her the Gwyneth Paltrow of, because she's a veterinarian, so they call her the Gwyneth Paltrow of the, like, veterinarian offices in town. She's had many men fall in love with her because of her attractiveness. Whenever these men got into a romantic relationship with her, they always had a near-death experience and would then run away from her. Literally, again, as we know, per Love Mikaela podcast territory, and my traditions, the first episode is free game in terms of spoilers. I try, if it's like this one's an hour, so I'll try not to go like too far into that first episode. But at least the first like half hour, 20 minutes of a first episode is fair game. It's not spoilers. So I will say, like, they show like the different ways, like from the beginning of her childhood until she becomes an adult. Like, I think they showed like 4 or 5 different examples of men, and all of them, like, one gets struck by lightning, one breaks a finger, one like almost gashes his head open, one like chokes on a ring. It's really funny. But yeah, every man that like tries to start a relationship with her ends up in some kind of really bad near-death experience. Because of the bad luck, Oh Baek-yeon is not dating anyone, but she badly wants to meet a man of fate. So that's the synopsis. That's pretty much it. The fairy, they call them fairies, but they're cupids. It's just like there's more than one. I don't know if like traditionally my jacket is so loud. I don't know if traditionally it's assumed that Cupid is only supposed to be like there's only one Cupid, or if there's supposed to be multiple. I don't know what like the regular like lore of that is, but they call them fairies, but they're all Cupids essentially. So it's basically about a guy who is Cupid and a girl who has the worst luck in love ever, and the two of them coming together and maybe forming a relationship. I mean, it's called My Man is Cupid. She definitely likes him. Does he like her? That is to be determined at a later date, because at first he definitely ooh, someone's motorcycle. At first he definitely is not super into her. I'm just gonna go into my thoughts without spoilers. I've got about 2 pages worth of things here. The first whole page essentially is no spoilers, so you should be pretty good on that. This one could be considered kind of spoiler-y, so I think I'm going to save it for the end, so I'll come back to this thought. The setup for the show in the first episode was really good. It set up the story, it set up the beginnings of the Cupid lore really well. Like, everything was set up very well. It set up the relationships for between the characters, like between the main lead, the main female lead, and her friend who's her roommate, and then also between the main male lead, the Cupid, and his other Cupids that he lived with. Like, all of those relationships were set up really, really well, and I think we got a feel for the characters really easily and really early on in the story. Especially I loved the relationships in this. I just wish, like, this isn't really a spoiler. The show is about a romance, so obviously we're going to focus on the couple, but I wish we'd had a little bit more time with the relationships between the friends and each other, because they were so funny and so fun to watch that I feel like it didn't really do justice to what they had built with the amount of time that we spent observing the relationships. Like it was just fun. The friendships were super fun to watch, and so I was disappointed that we didn't really get to dig into those a little bit more. But that's okay. That wasn't the point of the show, so I'm not taking any points off for that. Um, I really liked the parallels that they set up with. So the beginning of the show, you find out that the roommate of Baekhyun, and I'm so sorry if I'm not saying it right. I'm basically saying it with like a Japanese RL sound. I can't explain it without going into like the phonetic alphabet, and that's boring for people. So I'm not gonna go into that. But so sorry if I'm saying Baekhyun's name wrong. I apologize in advance. But that's how I'm gonna say it. So Baekhyun's roommate, who's like her best friend and who's like her confidant on the show, she does like live streams, I think on YouTube. I don't know. They don't use like, names of things in Korean shows anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But she live streams and she does like relationship advice and like makeup looks and stuff like that, and it's really funny to watch. But I really liked the way that they set it up and this happens in the very first episode, so again, it's not a spoiler. I really loved that they set up like parallels between what's happening in the main story of the show and then explanations of it through the roommate's name was Dora, through Dora's live streams. It was really, really funny. It was like a way to explain the more subtle things that were happening. So if anyone in the audience was like a little bit lost as to what was going on, if you paid attention to those parts, you'd be like, oh, that's what's happening right now. And not subtle as like this, as subtle as in like there are hints and clues that like you would pick up. Like if you're good at picking up on clues and hints in your regular life, you'd pick up on it in the show. But if you're someone who's kind of more oblivious and clueless to things, especially like romantic things, in terms of the relationship between our two main leads, Dora's live stream snippets, like the little parts we got of that, really explained those parts really well. And so I think it was a good and it was a clever and a fun way to make sure that no one in the audience, like no one who's watching, was left behind in what was going on in those moments. I thought that was a nice way to do it. It was just funny too. It made sure there wasn't a miscommunication between the show and the audience, of what the show wanted us to see and understand from the story. Because like obviously in specific genres, it's much more important that you kind of hide things a little or conceal things a little bit. Like in a mystery or like a thriller or suspense kind of show, you would want to hide more of the story and let people pick up pieces if they pick it up, and then if they don't, then it's a even bigger surprise later on when they do the reveal, right? But for a show like this, of course there's going to be some stuff that they want to hide, but there's some stuff that like they're hiding it because in real life it wouldn't be super obvious, but they want to make sure the audience picks up on it. And because of that, using the live stream as a way to ensure that the audience picked up on whatever needed to be picked up on was like, it was just a cool way to do it. I've never seen anything like that before, so I thought it was fun. And it was just funny. She's a great actress, and she played the character really well, and it was fun. I really did like the casting on this, and the acting was really great all around. Like the whole cast is good. They're good actors. It was good casting, like parts for parts, and I really loved I really loved Dora a lot. I thought she was like, she just fit her role so perfectly. I was really surprised when I looked her up that she hadn't really, like, the actress hadn't really done a ton of like stuff before this. Like she done lots of like tiny like little like one liners or like small, very small parts here and there, not a ton, but she done like a good chunk, a good handful. I would watch her as like a main lead, like female lead in something, or I'd watch her as the best friend again in something else, but in like a bigger capacity. She played the part really well. She was good. She was funny. I just liked her a lot. I also really thought that the casting they did for, there's a Cupid that turns into a dog. We find that on the beginning. Don't worry. Dongchil. Yeah. Dongchil. I feel like he was perfectly cast. His acting was good. Like, I'm not frowning on that at all, but just like his look, I was like, yeah, that's a man that looks like he would turn into a dog. Not in a bad way. In a the dog that they portray him as when he's in his dog form is a golden retriever, and then when they show him, I'm like, yep, very believable. Like, it's just fully believable, and I feel like that casting was done perfectly. I was really happy with that. The one of the things I didn't really like is I felt like the show from the first episode was very much set up like a comedy, and the comedic moments in this show are gold. They're perfectly timed, they're perfectly played, like they're acted very well. Like it just and fits in the story perfectly. It doesn't feel awkward, and they're so funny, and I really loved all of those parts. And then there's like sound effects that they include that some K-dramas do, some K-dramas don't. It made it feel like it was going to be a very funny romantic comedy, like that the comedy was going to be the thing that they leaned into, because I find that most, not even just K-dramas, shows, honestly, it's not even like this is a normal thing. Shows don't just do romance, or just do, like, shows don't just do one thing. They always have an element of another kind of genre in them, right? Like even like a murder mystery is going to have like an element of maybe romance, or an element of like something gory, or an element of supernatural, like, or like even a cop drama could have some romance elements in it. Or like think of like a medical show that you watch, like there's going to be moments of romance, there's going to be moments of comedy, like stuff like that. So I thought that this particular show was going to be a rom-com that leaned very much into the comedy, especially going into it thinking like, oh, my man is Cupid. It's going to be about like the differences and the difficulties of a human dating someone who's not human, and who's Cupid, and like how does that work, that kind of a thing. That's what I thought it was going to be. And with the first episode, I felt like the comedy, the comedic aspects of it were all set up very, very well, very thoroughly, and they were done really well. So I was very excited about that. And then as the drama went on, it really lost a lot of those comedic elements and focused more on a different storyline that was happening in it that's not funny. It's like, it's not supposed to be funny, it's serious. It's like a serious like thread that's kind of woven into the fabric of the show. It focused so much more on that we lost a lot of the comedic moments as the show went on, and that was a huge bummer for me, because these actors, I think, all handle comedy really well, just from what I saw. Like they did a really good job with it, and so it was kind of a shame, and it fit the story really well too, so it was kind of a shame that they lost a lot of those comedic moments, because those are some of my favorite parts of the show. So that was kind of a bummer. But back to the actors. Our main actor, I'm gonna talk about three of them that I really liked, and just why I liked them. So the first one is Nana, I think it's probably how you say it. I don't think it's Nana, but it could be. I don't know. I've never heard anyone say her name before. I've only read it. She plays the female lead, Baekhyun, and she's just a great actress. She's like gorgeous, but she's so good at expressing herself. She uses her whole body to express herself. I think maybe she was a model. I'm not sure. I can't remember if she was like a model or a dancer, but I think she was a model, and she's just very good at expressing herself, using her entire body in a way that's not like overbearing. It feels very, very natural. And she also is really good at finding little moments that can make like a big difference. Those little pockets that you find in a show are so beautiful to me. It's like a little, ooh, it's like a little treat, like a little, like you found like some treasure or something. Like when you can find little moments to add a little, just the teeniest thing to a scene, and it can make it so much more rich and just good. I love those. Like I love finding those myself as an actor, but seeing someone else do it, it's like, like I never would have thought to make a moment and do that there, and they did it, and it looks so good and it works so well. Like I love stuff like that. Something very one of the ones that I wrote down, like it's the one that I wrote down that I focused on, that I loved, and it's in the first episode, so don't worry again, is her and her roommate are at their kitchen table, they're eating food together, and they're talking about how, oh, I could talk about this because it's in the first episode. Baekhyun, because like she has so much bad luck with love and stuff, and so they go to a tarot card reader, her and her roommate, like for fun. And the tarot card reader says like, you need to climb this mountain 1,000 times and pray at the top of this mountain and ask for forgiveness, and if you do that, then you will find, like, the man who is fated to be your one true love will meet you that day. Like you'll run into him like that day. So she's been doing this over and over and over, like working to meet this man who's her fate, who's the one, because everyone else gets hurt whenever she tries to get with anyone. So obviously if this man is fated to be with her, he won't get hurt if he's in love with her and they're dating, right? So she's been doing this for, and by the time we meet her, she's on her like she's like 4 or 5 away. Like she's on 990 something times of going, hiking up this mountain, praying, hiking back down. And her roommate are at the table having dinner or snack, I can't remember, but they're eating together. And she's talking about it, and her roommate's like, oh, well, take me with you on your 1000th time because I want to see what this man looks like that you've been working so hard for. And she looks at her and she's like, no, you haven't gone with me to any of the other times. You think I'm gonna let you like reap the benefits when I'm the one who did all the work and you didn't do anything? And her friend's like, haha. And then Nana's character, it's joking, is like, oh, what, you want to steal him, like joking. And then the roommate Dora, she goes, I mean, if he's good looking enough, I might. And Nana was like, the character Baekhyun Nana, as the actor was also doing it, was eating something and was chewing. And when her friend says, well, if he's good looking enough, I might, she just stops chewing. Like, she just, everything freezes and she just looks at her and gives her like the dirtiest, deadliest look. And to the thought of, I am so serious about this and I need my friend to understand that like this is so not okay, that I have to stop chewing my food and give her a look, like it's that important. It's so, that's such a fun thing to pick up for a character and like give that to them, because I mean, it could have been written in the script, and if it was, like, good job to the screenwriter. Um, but it might like a lot of times those are just things that actors like throw in to add some flavor to it. Like, and you might think like, oh well, yeah, if she's serious enough, like she'd stop what she's doing and look at her friend. But it's like mid chew, how many times are you eating with someone and you stop and give them a look and you stop chewing? Like, it's to the point where you stop chewing, you freeze everything and you just give them a look and everything halts. How many times does that happen in real life? Only in like a very serious moment, right? This is a conscious decision that, unless it was written in, because I don't know if it was, again, good on the screenwriter, but it probably, my guess is that it wasn't, or maybe it was something the director directed her to do. I don't know. Either way, whoever's idea this was, like, this is a conscious choice that was made to be like, oh, this is a moment where, like, it is so serious, you have to stop chewing, you have to stop doing everything, all you can do, drop everything, just give her that look. That's all you're gonna do in that moment, because it's so important that you impart to her. And it was so funny, like, it comes across as very funny, but obviously to her character it's very serious. But that's a moment you have to consciously think about as like an actor or the director or the writer. Like, that was a choice that was put in there specifically, and she did that multiple times. Again, I don't know if it was her or if it was written in or if it was the director, but because it happened so many times with her character specifically, I feel like a good chunk of them were at least her own doing. When you have an actor who puts in that much work to then find these tiny moments to do little things that really add something and can make something really funny or more heartfelt, or, you know, anything like that, that's like a gift. That's gold. Like, I loved it. I just thought that moment was so good. It was so fun. Again, like, people who don't act, especially for on-camera stuff, or don't have like an idea about that side of things and how everything works, like, it's just like, it's incredible, like, the amount of work that goes into little things like that. And so it was just, I loved watching. That was really good. Anyway, Jang Dong-yoon, who plays Chon Sang-hyuk, again, sorry if I'm butchering names, Chon Sang-hyuk. So Jang Dong-yoon plays our male lead, Cupid. He's a really great actor. He wasn't super standout to me, but he holds his own with Nana, which, like, is impressive in its own right, like, because she's so good. If you have Netflix, or another way to watch things that are on Netflix, and you've watched Mask Girl, Nana was also in that. That's the first time I ever saw her in anything. I don't know if she did anything. I should have looked her up a little bit more before this. I don't know what else she did before that, or if she did anything before. Again, I think she might have been a model or like a dancer or something before, but she did Mask Girl, and she was really, really good in that too. And she has a lot of heavy emotional moments in Mask Girl, and that is such a complicated character. And this was a little bit lighter in terms, like, compared to that, but also had some heavy moments, and she handled those really well. She's just a good actor. And again, the little moments is like my favorite thing that she did. But our actor Jang Dong-yoon, who plays opposite her, who plays our Cupid, he, like, again, not super standout, but he held his own up, like, next to her, and that's its own, like, that's a feat in and of itself. Like, that just proves how good of an actor he is too, if he can not pale in comparison to her. He was really funny, and he played the role really, really well, and he was really likable, which is all important things for this particular character, and especially if you're playing like a leading guy. Also because his character's kind of grumpy, like, that's how I would describe the character. It's very grumpy, and to still be likable while being grumpy. to still be likable while playing a grumpy character, like that's a talent, and that's some work that was put into that as well. So he did a good job. Like none of the actors, even the side actors, none of them were like bad to the point that I was like, ugh, like taken out of things. So like that's good. One of my favorite actors on the show was actually, he's a little boy that the Cupids meet throughout the like whole show. Like he just has little moments here and there. It's not a lot. His name is So Woo Jin. He's just so good. I looked him up and I think it said he's almost 10 or so right now. So he's very little. And he's had a ton of parts in other dramas, like little parts. But I just felt like he was really, really good, and he's someone that I'll want to keep an eye on if he continues to act as he gets older. He just had, like, the character he played served as some comedic relief and also kind of, like, almost a mentor in a way. Like, a mentor voice, not, like, because he's a child, so not a mentor specifically, but kind of a mentor voice, I would say. And he just had such poise and confidence, like, that's how he carried himself, and that's what the character needed. And to do that at, like, such a young age was very impressive. But he also, his character is still a kid, so there were moments where the character like had to have a little bit more fun and loosen up a little bit, and he was able to do that too. And so that was really nice to watch. He handled the role really well, and it's exciting if he it'll be exciting to see where he goes if he continues to do acting, because it was just impressive to see him do that at such a young age. Okay, I'm almost at spoiler territory. Also, if you could tell, like, this episode's going to be a little bit shorter. It is what it is. But I feel like shorter episodes are good sometimes, too. This is almost spoiler, but not exactly spoiler. So if you want to tune out, everything after this will be full spoilers. But this one, I tried to word it as best as I could so it's not a spoiler. So I'm trying to just read it so I don't spoil anything. So not really a spoiler, but maybe spoiler territory if you're sensitive about spoilers. And then after this will be all spoilers, so this might be a part where you tune out. Okay, cool. I went into this drama expecting it to focus on the fact that the main lead is Cupid, and that was what I thought was going to be the whole draw of it. The show is called My Man is Cupid, so I thought the drama was going to focus on the fact that this guy is Cupid, or a fairy, whatever you want to call him. And that makes his relationship with this woman very difficult for multiple reasons. But one, the biggest thing being that he is a Cupid and she's a human. And how does that work with their jobs and blah, 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 blah. I thought that was going to be the focus because that's the title of the show. And the clips that I'd seen of the show, that's what it appeared to be. The show then shifted to focus on the crime aspect more. This is all of this is included in the first episode. You find out about all of this in the first episode, so I'm not spoiling anything. But I just felt a little bit misled when that happened. That could just be on me. I thought it was going to be more of a focus on being Cupid and dating a human with a crime side story, because K-dramas tend to do that. Like, they'll, like, even if you've watched Strong Women Dobong Soon, which is like one of my all-time favorites, it's a rom-com with a crime side story, and that part is very heavy, like it's a big part of the show, but I didn't feel like it overshadowed anything to a way where I felt like misled. This one I felt misled. I thought it was going to be a show about human and Cupid falling in love, and there was a crime side story, but instead it felt more like the main story was all the crime stuff, and that the side story was the fact that he was Cupid. It's not even like, oh, I didn't get enough romance in it. That's not it. I thought we were going to get all of this stuff about how, like, all the problems, most of the main problems were going to be because he's Cupid and she's a human, which they were in, like, a roundabout way, but not, like, directly, and that there would be a side story that was, like, the crime, and it helped tell some of the backstory. No, we got crime and then a little bit of Cupid, and that's not at all what I was expecting. If anything, I wish it had been more balanced, because I wouldn't have minded that it focused really heavily on the crime stuff if it also had an equal amount of focus on the fact that he was Cupid, but they didn't. It was mostly on the crime stuff. And I get, like, why story-wise that made the most sense and why it worked for the story. It just felt very jarring considering, like, the clips I'd seen and the fact that the whole thing is called My Man is Cupid. I just felt a little misled. That could also just be on me. It didn't ruin the show for me. Like, I don't hate the show, I don't dislike the show, but I just if I had gone into it knowing that more of the focus would have been on the crime aspect of everything, I don't think I would have been as disappointed as I was. Yeah, again, could just be a me thing. Okay, now for real is spoiler time. So if you don't want any spoilers, this is the time to tune out for sure. Cool? Cool. Okay. The ending was a little unsatisfying. Again, I feel like they focused on the serial killer so much that we lost the Cupid aspect of it all. And to the point where I like it bothered me so much because it was to the point where I was confused about the lore. Like I felt like it wasn't thoroughly explained at the end. I just felt like we lost so much of the Cupid lore because we were focused so much on the serial killer stuff. Again, I know the serial killer stuff was important because it was part of their backstory and their history together and their fate and all of that. But I was just like, where's the Cupid? Where's Cupid? Why? Where did this go? Like, it just disappeared for like the last half of it. I was like very just lost and confused. And I also just thought it was odd that he had to be reborn, but he was still reborn the same age and the same person when she wasn't reborn the same age and the same person. Like, she would die and then be born again as someone else. Like, they didn't even use the same actress for any of those other things. They used different actresses for each of her different lives. So I was like, okay, which I get you can explain away as, well, he's a Cupid, he's not a human, so he can be reborn the same person with the same face and the same age and all the same memories. Like, I guess it could work like that because they didn't explain everything, but that's really not satisfying to have it be that way, to just be like, oh, well, it's because he's Cupid. I'm like, okay, but all this other stuff happened and you didn't go into the fact that he's Cupid at all, so why? It's just very unsatisfying for me. Um, and I also didn't feel like they fully explained how Dong Paul, which was like maybe the second oldest, I think he was the second oldest of the Cupids, the one who was like kind of always opposing our main character, whose name I just forgot, Sang Hyuk. Um, I feel like it wasn't fully explained how Dong Paul knew, not Dong Paul knew that the arrow could be shot, to like change his fate or whatever. Like they showed a flashback to it, I think. But it was so confusing to me that I was like, was that a flashback, or am I like, was I just confusing one scene with another scene? Like, I didn't know. Again, that could just be a me thing. Like, I don't really know for sure if I was just the only one who's confused. I was like folding paper stars and paper cranes during all of that, so that could be on me. But I just felt like that wasn't fully explained, how he knew that the arrow could be shot, and was like, well, I missed one time. And I was like, but he wasn't the one who initially shot the arrow. The other guy was, because he turned into a dog because he was the one who shot the arrow. Like, that was all I was just very confused about that part, which again, I feel like if we had spent a little less time on the crime, we maybe could have gotten a better explanation on that, but we didn't. Also, the tarot card reader, I don't think that was ever fully explained, or not like who he was or how he played into everything, because we had the little kid and he was Courage and I really liked that, and then we had that old man who was like God, who's the one who like weaved all the red threads and all of that, or I don't know if he's God, I think it's like a specific god or something, like the god of fate or something, I don't know. Those were explained who they were. The tarot card reader was not really ever explained. I was like, well, then who is he and how does he play into everything, and why didn't he get in trouble like the little boy got in trouble? Well, not in trouble, but you know what I mean. Scolded or like looked at, or was like, hey, you're the one who's messing up all my stuff, I was just like, who is the tarot reader? Why do we not know who he is? And then when I looked up the credits, it's like, maybe I just didn't recognize that it was the same actor who played like the god, the red thread person. I was like, maybe it was the same person. I just didn't recognize. I didn't realize it. Like, it didn't register. But it was different actors, and it wasn't mentioned in the, like, when I looked up, like, cast, like, who played who. It wasn't mentioned. So I feel like the tarot card reader also never really got explained. And it's not like they were just a normal tarot card reader, because they weren't, because they would disappear, and then it was like, the woman was like, I'm the owner of the shop, not whoever. There's not a man here. So I was like, it just a lot was not explained, and that was a big bummer for me. What else? Oh, I did really like the Cupids giving Baekyeon the hint that she'd meet Chung Chon Sang-hyuk again. Sorry. Gotta look at the names. I really liked that they gave her the hint that they'd meet again by doing the calendar thing for her, and that she like went back and like tried to do it again to bring him back. I just thought it was really cute that they wrote in the 1,000 for her to let her know like when it was done. I just thought it was sad that they couldn't be included at the end, and that her friend Dora didn't get to be with the other Cupid that she had fallen in love with. It was just a little, that was a bummer. But I get it, like story wise, why that made sense, because they were full Cupids now, so they couldn't be seen by humans anymore. Yeah. It was just kind of a bummer. I did very much like seeing the very end with their daughter and the two of them. Like, it was just really sweet and cute and tied in the whole Cupid thing really nicely. And then also there was the scene with the grandparents that like were her parents in her past life but like didn't really know, but then she was like, "Can I be your daughter?" And I guess it showed like that they accepted her as their daughter. I don't know if they told them about the whole past life thing and if they believed it or not. I feel like you wouldn't tell them, you would just ask. But I just thought that was a nice touch, and it was sweet to see them telling the story to their daughter. Like, it was just cute. It was a good touch, and it was a nice way to end it. But I think the biggest thing that disappointed me was that the Cupid aspect got kind of lost because we were so focused on the crime stuff. Which I get. I get that the crime thing was important because it was connected to her past life and his trying, like, part of like showing his love and dedication for her, even though it wasn't her, but it was her. I get it. And the past life thing, I mentioned before that like people are getting tired of all of that. It makes sense for this. I understand why it needed to be included. Like, that makes sense for this particular show. However, could we maybe have focused also a little more on the Cupid supernatural side of things and not just the past life and how they were connected? Could we maybe have balanced it a little? I think we could have. I'm not a writer though, so maybe we couldn't have, and that was the best way to do things. I don't know. It was a little disappointing. Anyway, that's no more spoilers. We're gonna go into just my ending, my thoughts, and then TLDR. Cool. Okay, no more spoilers from now. This drama is one of the most mid dramas I have ever watched. It wasn't awful. It wasn't really good. It's not one that I think I'd go back and rewatch. It was fine. It was mid. The best way to explain it. I don't know if I would recommend this as a rom-com. Like, I don't know if a friend who like really liked rom-com-y K-dramas, if they asked for a K-drama, if I would recommend this. They might be like, "Oh, well, Cupid's in the title." I'm like, "No, girl, it's a trap. It's a trick." Yes, he's Cupid. Yes, there's elements of it, especially in the beginning, and we have the funny stuff, but because the story was so focused on the other aspects of everything that happened, it just wasn't what I was expecting. So don't be fooled by the title. I would recommend it if someone who likes kind of like mysteries and like crime stuff. Then I would maybe recommend it because I feel like that was really, really interesting. And if you go into the show knowing that that's one of the really big aspects of it, that there's a mystery happening and some crime stuff happening, and if you go into the show knowing that that's a big part of it and a very big part of it, and you like those a lot, then maybe I would recommend it because it was interesting. Like, the way that it all played out was very interesting. But I don't know if I don't know. It's mid. It's a very mid drama. Like, I would go in saying it's a mid drama. It's very heavy on like mystery and like some crime, like police stuff that's happening. Those are really heavy aspects of it. Don't go into this thinking you're just going to get a Cupid supernatural story, because you're not. It's also definitely a drama. You can do other things while you're watching. Like, I definitely got bored in bits. I said in the spoiler section, I think, so you might not have heard it, but I folded paper stars while I was watching this. I folded paper cranes while I was watching it. You could probably knit while you're watching it. My mom was doing, I don't know if she was knitting or crocheting, but she was, doing something. You can do other things while you watch this drama. It's not one that you have to fully focus on. There's parts where you definitely need to fully focus, especially if you don't speak the language or you don't understand Korean very well, because I don't. There were definitely parts where I was like, "Oh, let me rewind and go back and rewatch that because that was important and I missed it." But there's also just parts where you're like, "Cool, I'm gonna tune out a little bit, but like keep an eye on it." Yeah, it was a mid drama, so I don't really know if I would recommend it. However, TLDR, the moral of the whole show was top tier. It was so good. I teared up while watching it, literally while watching the end. I was like, "Oh, that's really nice." Basically, their moral of the whole show is that courage is the one thing that can change your fate. And that was beautiful, and that made me cry as I talked about that concept at the end. that whatever you believe in, God, the universe, a higher power, just fate, whatever you believe in, if you believe in anything like that, that they set the framework, but that you can change it. And that the thing that you can change it with is with your courage. I liked that. I thought it was nice. With your own courage and your own determination, that you actually get to decide what happens in your life, and then you can go against your fate, quote unquote, if you want to. That courage and overcoming fear is what will give you your new life. And I fully believe that. I think that a lot of people let fear stop them from doing things, and maybe that's fate keeping them on a certain path, or that's just the basic framework that was set up and they decided not to deviate from that path at all because they were afraid to. But courage is the one thing that can give you the chance to kind of deviate from your life path, your fate, whatever you want to believe it is, whatever, the framework that the universe or whoever set out for you. Courage is the thing that you can use to kind of change that and change your life with. And I genuinely believe that. Whether you believe in fate or not, I think courage is something that can change your life, if you want it to. Because the life-changing decisions that, like, people take and make, they're not easy. It's not an easy thing to do something that's going to change your life. I mean, sometimes it is. Sometimes it can be little things. But even those little things can be scary too. And if you let the fear get to you enough, you're not going to reach out and try anything new, and you're just going to kind of stay stagnant or stay on your life path or your fate or whatever you want to call it. But if you have the courage to go against that, or maybe take a turn or go down a different path, that's when your life will change for better or for worse. I would like to think it's usually mostly for better. But that's what will make your life change, is if you have the courage to see the fear, overcome it as best as you can, or feel it but keep going anyway. That's what can really change your life. And I just thought that it was a really powerful lesson to learn or be reminded of, is that, like, you have the power to change your life if you have the courage to do it. You have the power already. You have the power regardless. If you have the courage to actually put those plans into motion, or actually get yourself moving and changing your direction or changing what you're doing, that's when your life will, like, actually change, and you have control over that. And it can be hard, but when you can see how good your life can be with little changes that you decide to make, it's, like, worth it. I don't know. I feel like I've, within the last few years, really changed my life by not letting fear and anxiety kind of rule, and, like, feeling it but doing things anyway. And it's, like, just really paid off for me. And so I hope that, like, you can find the courage to do, like, one thing that you've been afraid to do recently. I just think it would be good. And once you start to do it, it gets easier and easier. So yeah. It was, again, mid-drama. Don't know if I'd fully recommend it. It was fine. It wasn't great. It wasn't awful. I don't regret watching it. I don't think I'd rewatch it. But the moral of the whole thing was really sweet and made me tear up and was nice. So that was worth it, at least. But yeah, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for spending this time with me and for watching or listening. And I will see you next time. Oh, have a good rest of your week, weekend, day, night, evening, morning, afternoon, whatever it is for you. And yes, and I will see you next time. Okay. Love, Mikaela. Bye.